So the next thing we're gonna do, I'm gonna install a really basic, simple valve at the end of this line. The reason being, if you ever need to flush your line out, if there's ever old nutrients in there, anything like that, we'll just have a really simple, effective way of cleaning it out. And this piece will be reusable on all future lines that you use. So this will be hard bonded into there. And then we're gonna want a little elbow just to make it a little more convenient. That's a 1-inch smooth to smooth elbow. If the valve's like this, it means that water is flowing in that way. We're gonna wanna make sure that it's turned that way so that water doesn't flow out when you turn your system on. And then just like how we converted the hard PVC to that 3/4 Netafim tube, we're gonna do the same thing with this piece, which will make it reusable for all pieces of tube you do in the future. The way we're gonna do that, we can just use that little extra piece there and put on another female thread 1-inch to a straight slip or a straight smooth 1-inch. And then next we're gonna use, well, I would get the sticker off there if I were you, but next we're gonna use this 1-inch thread to a 3/4 barb. And again, you're gonna wanna heavily wrap that with plumber's tape to ensure there's no drips or leaks. And all of this will be plugged in on the end of your Netafim tube, right there. You can have it either sitting in the tray, which I would recommend just because if you drain it, you'll be able to catch all that water. But if you wanna drain outside of your tray into a bucket or something, you could make it a little bit longer. Since I cut this tube a little bit long, we're gonna do it that way. Before you put this on your Netafim tube, you're going to wanna use hose clamps. So this piece right here, this is a 3/4 hose clamp. You should find these at any hardware store you have. You're gonna slip this over your Netafim tubing there to that end, and then you're gonna plug in this piece right here. Put your hose clamp on there first, and just go ahead and plug that piece on in. And there you go. You'll use your clamps to clamp these on. To do that, you essentially just use the clamp and then you'll just squeeze on down. Make sure that it's clamped directly onto that barb piece out. I try to do it as close to the barb piece as possible while still on the tube, just so that it doesn't clamp around where those threads would be on the inside. Alrighty, the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna puncture this Netafim tubing, and we're gonna run some assemblies from the tubing into the pots. Jacob is gonna explain as well which assemblies are best for which mediums. To puncture the tubing, the next thing we're gonna need is a punch. This is a Netafim 3mm punch. So what you do is you take your punch and it has a pokey little end there, and you just go ahead and you puncture it near where your plant is gonna be. And this will put a little hole in your line right there. See this little hole there? The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take our assembly. These are sold in different lengths and they have different gallon per hours. The assembly does not include a stake. The stake also will apply to certain assemblies. So we're gonna do a fuchsia and a fuchsia or a purple and a purple today. This is a 3.2 gallon per hour. It's probably one of our more common selling assemblies. So you take this little component here, the emitter. This is what actually controls the amount of water that's leaving your line. And you're gonna plug that right into the hole that you made. You should hear a nice satisfying little pop sound. And then this right here will plug into your medium. If you make a mistake where you put your emitter, you pop a hole in your line that you don't want somewhere, we sell these as well. These are called a goof plug from Netafim. This is a pack of, I believe, 25 of them, and you'll see that one size right here will fit directly into the line wherever you made a hole. If you don't want to use the Netafim components, we also sell FloraFlex. There's some pros and cons to both systems. What I really like about FloraFlex is it's very simple to turn off the head simply by pulling up on this lever, and then no more water will come out. It's also really nice because you can install it directly into hard PVC instead of having to use the Netafim tubing. So to apply this, you would basically have hard PVC and it would be bonded into both sides. Then it has a head component that comes with these different size rings depending on what size emitter you would like. This is what they look like, and they clip right onto the inside of this. And then it has 8 spots here that feed tube out to your plants. This is really nice when you're dealing with something like 4 plants because you could have 2 lines into each pot. However, if you have an odd number, these can be a little weird, and that's where maybe Netafim would have an advantage. The next thing I'm going to talk to you guys about is how to automatically control this pump to turn on and off. We have 3 different options today to take a look at. This right here is just a simple digital timer. You could put settings on here to have it turn on and off at certain times. The pros to this is it's going to be your cheapest option. The cons is you have the least amount of control with it, and people find these notoriously convoluted for whatever different reason. This is the one I'm going to use today. This is an autopilot precise cycle timer. This one is very nice because it has a built-in photocell and it allows you to dial in your watering exactly how you'd like to only turn on when the lights are on. The last is going to be the more advanced of our options. This is an Aqua X controller from Trollmaster, and this entire system could use a bunch of different components from Trollmaster, but we're not going to get into that today just because there's so many different parts and several different ways to do it. For today, we're going to use this, and let me show you how to set it up. Just go ahead and take it out of the box here. And then your pump is going to plug into this component right there. So again, you see one plug-in on that side and then an outlet on this side. So your pump plugs into here, and this will plug into your wall. On the timer right here, you're going to want to go ahead and unlock it so that you can make changes. You want to change it so that it waters while lights are on. And then up here, you can adjust how long you want it to water for. So let's say we want it to water for 30 seconds right there. This right here will tell you how often to turn that watering on. So you can go ahead and say, you know what? Every 4 hours, I want this system to turn on for 30 seconds. And when your lights turn on, this has a photocell in it that'll turn green and it will start feeding your plants when lights are on. Alrighty, the next component we're gonna talk about is just cleaning and maintaining your RCal filter. As your system runs, it will collect salt and that salt will build up in here. I'm gonna show you really quickly just how to clean it out. It'll come with this right here, an RCal wrench. And this just reaches right around up here. And you should be able to loosen it enough to where you can unscrew it by hand. So this unscrews there. This whole thing will pop off. And you'll see you have the RCal filter inside here. Let me take it out and show you. The RCal filter is made up of a series of discs that all have a certain mesh size. This mesh size will catch certain salts as they go through the discs and leave into your line. To clean this out, you can simply toss it in a small H2O2 solution and let it soak and rinse it down. If you need to do a really intense cleaning, it has a top ring here that you can actually remove, and all of these discs will come out. So you can go ahead and just pour them all out into a solution and give them a quick scrubbing. When you're done cleaning it off, rinse it well with water. Make sure to rinse out the inside of this as well. and you can just go ahead and toss it back in there. This component should last you a very long time if you clean it and maintain it properly. It isn't something that we really see people replacing. And it goes ahead and it pops right back in there, and you're gonna screw it in tight. After hand screwing it, make sure to use the R-Cal wrench.
Hey there, taking back over for my buddy Isaac. I'm gonna go over some of the different scenarios you guys can run through for different pot sizes, different media, different amounts of stakes per plants, and kind of what we see that works around the store here. So first, we're gonna start with the real big pot. So we got a 10-gallon pot here. We have the Growers 70-30 mix that's inside of it. This is a cocoa perlite mix, so it's a mix that once you have it root bound, you're gonna wanna feed it all the time. We like to use these sticks right here. So this right here that I have in my hand is a 6.6 gallon per hour and a double-sided 6.6 gallon per hour stake. Usually we recommend 2 to 3 of these for a plant this big. Just like that, pop it right in the plant, right in the main line. You're good to go, just like that. So usually, like I said, about 2 of those per those plants. The next pot size we're gonna do here is the 1-gallon pot. So right here, we have 1-gallon pots. A lot of people like to veg in these. They don't take up much space. We have an organic cocoa from Growers in here. Very simple mix, no trouble transplanting. Plants love it. You'll see a real green plant that you really won't be able to overfeed right off the bat in that kind of a mix. So what I have here is 2 different scenarios. One is one single 1 gallon per hour. You could also get a 1/2 gallon or even smaller, like a 1/3 gallon if you wanted, but we're gonna do a 1 gallon here. That goes into your main line. Stake, 1 plant per stake. If you wanna have 2 plants per stake to spread it out, or you wanna do less buttons, I have a really cool thing they make here. It's a pre-assembled whip. It has 4 stakes and a 4-way out. I have a button in here that actually has a star bit instead of a regular bit that fits directly onto these 4 ways and as well 2 ways, which we'll get to here in a little bit. So this thing's cool. You take this, pop it right into the line like that, and then you take your 4-way right on top, and now you have 4 lines. So you can do 2 for each plant. You could do 4 plants. If you're trying to do them in a bigger pot, you could, put them in here just like this. I would recommend more water than just a gallon, but you could run it longer. Those do max out at 2 gallons per hour, so that's kind of your limitation, which is why we usually like to recommend them for the smaller pots. But with that, the one thing I would say is you don't have a redundancy in either of those situations. You only have 1 dripper, so if the dripper fails, you're gonna probably have a dry plant and you're gonna have to keep your eye on it. Whereas over here where we did 2, one of the drippers fails, you still have one of them feeding. Next on our choices, we have our rock wool choice. So a lot of people grow in rock wool. A lot of people do it different ways. This is the way we see a lot of people do it here. Same thing we're gonna use right here. This is a 1 gallon per hour button. Stick it right in your main line. Make sure you hear that pop, and then take the 2-way, pop it right on top. And now you're basically getting a 1/2 gallon of water per hour out of each stake. It's either that or, like I said, do 2 different buttons. You're gonna have twice as much hardware, but you will have that redundancy. If you keep your line clean though, you should have no problem worrying about stuff clogging or not getting watered, because you should have a clean water and clean pressure all the way through so that stuff like that doesn't happen. Right here, we have one of our most common combinations here. This would be the Growers 70-30 Cocoa Perlite or a 70-30 Cocoa Perlite blend, 5 gallon pot. We have here an elevator underneath it. These things are actually really cool. They elevate your plant off of the surface, so they're actually never sitting in water. You can get maximum drainage. What we see a lot with these is these 3.2 gallons right here, 2 of them per plant, separated so you have a redundancy. So if one of these dries out quick, you at least have one of them that's still watering, as long as everything's going right with your pump. We have these single-sided 3.2 stake, so it's gonna spray at an angle 1 way. And then what I was gonna show here is a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll take, right here, we're gonna have to cut off the elbow because that comes as part of the assembly, but you can chop that off and then you can stick the same angle barbs as the smaller ones. They don't spray quite as much. They also don't spread quite as much, but you can pop that right in there too. I wouldn't recommend doing what I just did there with 1 of each. I just did that as a demonstration. I would choose one or the other so you have the proper flow all the way through. Lastly, we're gonna go over here to this. This is a 10-gallon pot. We did 2 6.6-gallon drippers. They're the orange ones there. I have, for reference, 2 of the stakes that go with these. The light one actually is a double-sided, so you'd put it closer to the base of your plant, have it spray both ways. The gray is single-sided, just like the 3.2, so kind of put it towards the outside and have it spray inwards or towards the in and spray out, really depending on your preference. Again, I always recommend doing at least 2 for these big pots, probably even 3. Another cool thing we're actually gonna show you right here for those big pots is something new from Netafim. This is basically their new Netafim Halo watering system. So right here underneath it is where it's gonna drip out of, get a lot more coverage. What you can do with these, take it right off of the stake, pop it right onto there. Oh, actually that doesn't fit. So what we're gonna need to do again is cut it. And then this pipe should be universal right into there. And now you have a halo that's gonna water all on the outside. I would do another one of these just as a fail-safe, but that's a really cool new system that they just came up with. So everything we've used here are pre-assembled. They make them in every size you can imagine, all the way from 1/3 of a gallon, all the way up to 10.6 gallons. The higher volume over 2 gallons are always gonna have the elbow on the end of them to stick onto a stake, whereas the lower 2 and below have the angle barb. They also make custom lengths. We did a lot of the lengths here, about 36 inches, 30 inches for the short ones, 48 for some of the long ones. But if you have a project that you need, say, a couple thousand of, we can always custom order a size just for you so you don't have extra. All this stuff also can be bought a la carte by the bag, so you can build them yourself. It does take quite a bit of time, but you will save a couple cents here and there getting them a la carte, and it might meet your situation even better. That's kind of the overview of what we see mostly in the stores. Like I said, this is just touching the tip. So if you want more, give us a call and we can give you a bunch more recommendations. From small plants to big plants, anything can be done really easily and affordable with these Netafim products we're going over here today. So now that we just went over a bunch of different scenarios that you could do in different pots, let's go over scalability a little bit. So this right here would be all you would need to set up for a small tent. You would never want to do all these different sizes on one loop because you'd have uneven distribution through all of them. So you want to make sure your system has one size throughout the entire system, unless you're doing different zones. All the different zones can always be different gallons per hour, but if it's in one zone, it needs to be the same gallon per hour. So right here, I have 3 of our most popular commercial pumps. The dab box would be the most popular, and to get something done, this one down here is the way to go. The one right above it we were just showing is the mini. This thing is great as well, but it does have its limitations. These are both digitally controlled pumps, so you can kind of turn up, turn down, control exactly how you need to. They also have other parts like docking stations. You can put multiple pumps together, really do whatever you need to. Also made by Dab are these liter pumps. These are a different sort of inline pump. So all 3 of these pumps, you would not set up like this. You would have this coming out of the bottom of your reservoir, just like one that was ported in there, and then through your filter and all that, but you would want it to be a bottom draw situation, not out of the top, just because you'd be wasting foot head of pressure. So all 3 of these pumps, like I said, for commercial applications are terrific. When it comes to scaling how many plants you can do, there's a couple different equations. We are always happy to help you figure out exactly what's gonna work based off of your main line, how big that needs to be, 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, 1 inch, how many drippers you can put on that one line before you hit a stranglehold and you don't have enough water to feed everything at the same time. And that's really when you do see problems, when you try to put too many drippers on a system or the wrong size pipe and you don't get enough feeding, you don't get enough water, then you can be frustrated that you just spent all this time building a complete system and it doesn't work correctly. So make sure you give us a call. We can always help you out with the math. Make sure you get it dialed in from the beginning every time.
We hope that you guys found this video helpful. This is something that we get a lot of phone calls about at the shop in regards to how to build out. So hopefully this covers a lot of that. If you guys found this video helpful, please give us a like and a subscribe. Below, we should have an attachment of all the products that we used today and a link to our shop.
And again, if you're trying to build any large commercial scale stuff and you need a hand with any of the math that goes into it, questions about different products, we went over a lot of them today, but there are a lot of other options. There's different RCal filters, there's different flush valves. Basically, you name it, they've thought of it and made it, and we sell it. So make sure to reach out to us. You can give a call to the store, click the commercial line, or drop us an email, or click the link below and follow all of our other great content just like this.